Well, Joshua said it right before we came on the air, but after spending the better part of the past several seasons losing for the entire game, I think it hurts a lot more to lose at the last second as we go live here on Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast presented by Heineken. John Lee joined by Sam Kastner and Joshua Morgan this week. Michael Black is on hiatus. And, well,
ouch.
That sucked.
Yeah, it did. We are sad.
Look, like John mentioned it, but I am used to much worse. I'm used to us being scored on very early in the game and then just like trudging through the rest of the game. So yeah, it's heartbreak, but it's less heartbreak than normal, maybe.
I don't know. I'm just really bummed. Shouts to Chris, who's live right at the beginning with us. He said, where to begin? Pines must make that stop at midfield. Took a poor angle, take the card if necessary, even if it's a red.
Yeah.
I think we all pretty much agreed. He'd been having a decent game up until that point, but he just came at that. At midfield, he ran at that ball all wrong and just got beat. Yeah. And at that point, you pull him down. It's probably not a red because there were kind of other defenders there. You could probably argue it wasn't.
I think he had two chances to do it, right?
Obvious goal scoring opportunity. Yeah, but the second one was in the box already.
I think he could have got him just outside the box, which certainly would have been a yellow and would have set him up for a dangerous free kick.
Yeah.
At the beginning, I think he overcommitted and then was like, "Oh, I'm not going to get there without taking him out," and thought he could get back, and he just couldn't.
Yeah. So it's a bummer. I think we played and this is I think the story of last week too. We played a more decent first half. And really had our chances and just didn't put them away, and we'll get into it. But the second half, we were not as strong a team. New York City maybe, deserved the one equalizer, but it's such a bummer to be coming away with no points after that one.
Yeah, and I mean, the first New York City goal was, I think I said it to you guys right as it happened, and they said it on the booth too. It looked like it was right off the practice field. It was a great goal off a corner. I mean, it's never fun to concede off a corner, but it wasn't shambles and somebody completely unmarked. It was, Julian could have maybe been a little bit tighter on it, made it a little more difficult, and it hits the post and bounces in. I mean, it's inches on that one to me. I'm okay giving up that goal. I don't know how you guys feel.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a tough piece, and those are good players. Maxi Morales and Keaton Parks kind of runs a pick off Donovan Pines, and Gressel had a pick between running into Pines and running around him, and in the time that it took him to run around Pines, that space is created, and it's in the far corner.
Yeah, and we saw on the broadcast, Losada had been yelling Mark 55, right? That was before the goal had been scored, so he knew.
That is not what I thought he was yelling about 55, but it turns out that was almost certainly what he was yelling about 55.
Oh, it's tough.
But look, we got to start with, at the very beginning of the game, it was a ball on a rope from Moses Nyman to set up the opening goal. Early on, Nigel Roberta opens up his DC United account, and we were flying high at the beginning of the game. It was a finish that we hadn't seen in a while from this team after a million shots, and none of them went in the back of the net to score in the first 10 minutes. Set the tone pretty well, and I think we were all feeling pretty optimistic for probably the first 70 minutes of that game.
Yeah, and I'll be interested on why Moses came out, because pretty early I was like, he's the man of the match. He was playing really, really well, and he didn't come off limping, right? There wasn't any kind of visible.
He sat down though, right? I think
he did sit down on the pitch, but it wasn't apparent what happened or what was even hurting.
Yeah, he didn't really look to be in pain. I don't know. It was kind of weird, so I'll be interested to see if someone asks about it in the presser. And yeah, I mean, it was such a great ball. He was playing so well.
Yeah, it was, and it's 11th start, and he's transfer value is going up, but I don't even want to talk about that. I'm just enjoying Moses Nyman.
How about a Gold Cup roster prospects are going up? Let's talk about
that. That's what I'd rather focus on. And then Roberta does well. I mean, he's like 1-on-3 or at least 1-on-2 there, and on his left foot. I don't think unless the NYC defenders thought he had that in his bag. No one did because we haven't really seen too much of him. But it was an absolute rocket with his left foot.
It was a hell of a finish.
I loved it.
Yeah, it was really great. And we had a ton of chances beyond that as well, right? We were buzzing in and around.
Ton is a lot. I don't know.
I think we had the run of play in the first half. especially in the beginning of the first half. We definitely had other chances that we should have put away. And I mean, straight up to right before New York City's second goal, right? We had chances. Yeah. I think Paul particularly had 2 or 3 that he really should have put in the back of the net, and it was disappointing to see that he didn't, and it ended up hurting us at the end.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that you can take from this game that ended up hurting us. I mean, someone in the Reddit post-game thread was talking about Hernan has taught this team a style, and that style is verticality and pressing and attacking. But what happens when you go up early 1-0 on the road?
Yeah.
Like, do you do that? Do you press and attack?
Absolutely.
For the third game in a week? I don't think that's what happened. We were at 39% possession at the end of the first half, and I'm sure it's even lower for the second half.
It's a good point, and I think I take your point too, Sam. Of yes, that's what we should do. I don't think that's what we did though.
No,
and I wonder if is that Losada learning this team now and seeing like third game in a week, not the top choice lineup to start the game. We scored early, like maybe we're comfortable, pressing when we have a good opportunity to, and not the whole game. I don't know why that happened, but I think you're right in the sense that if in Losada's ideal system, that's certainly what we would be doing.
Yeah, and we heard him say that when he was first hired, right? I'd rather win a game 4-3 than 1-0. So he wants to be taking those chances and scoring more, knowing that does leave you vulnerable in the back, and sometimes you will be caught pressing so high. But ideally, you're finishing more often than you're being scored on, and we're not really seeing that at the beginning. So again, it'll be really interesting in the presser because last week, I mean, Hernan, what are you going to do to help these guys finish? I can't do anything. Yeah. Next question.
I'll be interested
to
see if he answers Stephen Goff's question, regardless of what he asks. But we'll see here in a few moments.
I will be interested to see if his approach is the same. That you're right, Sam. He did say I'd rather win. I don't want to win 1-0, basically ever. But that was before he took a midweek game in Miami and then a weekend game in New York. They were in D.C. We went to the open practice and saw them. That's a lot of travel and a lot of lost time for recovery and even like walking through what you're going to do against the next opponent. It'd be interesting to see if he changes and adapts. I think as much as Donovan Pines learned a lesson on that second goal, Losada has lessons to learn from this game too.
Well, and you brought it up. I mean, 5 changes to the lineup from midweek and last weekend, which those two 11s were the same. But 2 starters, or at least 2 starters tonight defending, went off injured. And third game in 8 days. So holding on to that 1-0 lead, I think, and this is not me saying I wish we had Ben Olsen back, because I certainly don't, but I think those teams were more conditioned to hold on to a lead like that, and Losada's style is more pressing. I didn't see the press tonight, and in times it almost looked like, okay, defensively they're pretty stout. I wasn't upset with the defensive effort, but then when they did take possession in the second half, it was like, okay, what are we going to do with the ball now? It felt like there wasn't a ton of things getting pieced together, at least in the second half.
I think that is more so due to individual performances today, not necessarily being up to snuff, than a type of system that Losada was trying to put in.
That's fair. Were there specific players you thought were well off the pace tonight?
Paul and Julian, and you mentioned during the game that you had a question about them. You wanted to ask us on the pod. We're like waiting for the presser though too. These little beginning segments are always kind of awkward because
we're treading water here.
Yeah, we know that we can be cut off at any moment. We don't want to get too into the nitty gritty detail.
Yeah.
But those are 2 players. So we'll save your question. I don't know if I'm going to answer a little bit of it now, but those are 2 players I think for the past several games haven't really been playing at the caliber we expect them to. And they've cost us some pretty important moments, right? Potential goals. Their attitude looks they look really just down on themselves kind of in how they're playing. And if they bury some, or if Julian does some things differently on the field, he sends some different crosses in, then I think it's a completely different game.
Is the computer volume up?
It was just a matter of time, but you also play against a very good team who has so much quality. When you see the players coming up from the bench from New York City, are the players doing the difference. Parks on the first goal, and then the number 8 at the end were incredible run in a moment where I just told my players on the changing room that when you take a point, it's a point. And even when you have a corner kick in the very last second of the game, I don't understand why we still are going with so many numbers in the box instead of realizing today a point is enough. We fight and we go back to DC with 1 point. And on the contrary, we go up front with so many people, the people that normally needs to be in the box, and no one realized what I was doing. Even Donovan with cramps is willing to go forward to score the second goal. But I have to say that might be my fault, because I am the one trying to set the tone and create that winning mentality in my team, to win at all costs, to always play for the victory at home or away. And of course, at the very last second, it's about communication, and it's a lesson for the future, and it won't happen again. And based on all the efforts we did and all the energy we brought today on an away game against a very good opponent, I guess the point was more than deserved.
We'll go to Jason Anderson.
Hi, Hernan. It looked with the changes you made in the lineup, it looked like you had more of a 3-man central midfield rather than 3 up front. What were you looking for in making that change to the formation, bringing N.Y.C.F.C. Losada in?
First of all, it was a matter of giving minutes to all the players. We knew that many of us in our roster, they are not allowed yet to play 3 games in 1 week. So many changes, I didn't have any option. And on the other hand, I also want to give minutes to the players that deserve it, that were working hard. So it was a combination of, in some positions, just don't have another option. And looking for maybe a little bit more stability on the midfield, knowing that the 2 number 6 of New York City are 2 key players for the build-up, and for all the circulation goes to those 2 players. But on the other hand, still with Paul and with Nigel, and in transition, like the way we scored the goal, the intention was to go forward, to play that first ball vertical and try to attack the empty spaces that they left, knowing that the 2 fullbacks play very high and the 2 center backs are always wide open. So our goal was the best example of what we wanted to do when we recovered the ball. But on the other hand, I also felt that we were way too insecure when we recovered the ball. We didn't want to play, and I was expecting a lot more in possession. I always say I don't want to have possession just to have possession. I want to have possession to create opportunities, but there were moments that you need to be a little bit more smart, keep the ball in the team, let the ball run, let the ball do the work, like Philadelphia did in out the field, like Orlando did in out the field, like many teams do on the road when they are up front. So again, it's a game to learn and a lesson for the future.
We'll go back to Steve.
Hernan, what happened to Moses in the first half? Was it related to the conditions?
I really don't know. He was gassed. He was empty after 20 minutes. He was already asking for the change, and we couldn't hold it anymore. And that's a pity, because he was a player that we were expecting to give him 90 minutes with fresh legs. He didn't play the last 2 games. And we were forced to do not only that change and that replacement. Almost every replacement was for obligation. Brendan felt something. He stayed in the change room during the halftime. Frederick with cramps. Joseph had a quick yellow card, and that right side of New York City was the most dangerous. So almost all the changes that we did were more, I didn't have a choice. So it's a pity, and it's something that we will evaluate the coming days, because we're going to have many more weeks to come with midweek games, and you need a big roster to survive those moments. And today we didn't do it.
We'll go back to Jason. Jason, go ahead.
Hernan, you got the goal from Nigel today, his first start, his first goal in the league. How do you evaluate his overall performance?
I think he did great. It was a beautiful goal out of our first chance. So today we can't talk about efficiency, even though I think we had other opportunities to score the second goal. There was a cut ball, a cut pass to Russell Canals that it has to be always a goal. A chance with Paul with left. On set pieces, we were dangerous. So, but the efficiency was there, and I'm happy for Nigel for his first goal in MLS, and it's going to give us a lot of more competitivity up front.
We'll do one more question. We'll go to Mario Amaya. Mario.
Hola, Hernán. A pesar del resultado, ¿cómo crees que fue el desempeño ¿Tú crees que fue el desempeño del equipo, especialmente de la defensa, que pudieron neutralizar a dos jugadores importantes como Castellanos y Tajiri Shroudy?
No lo sé, tengo que volver a verlo el partido. Tuve la sensación de que por momentos lo hicimos bien, por momentos estábamos muy metidos atrás, no había suficiente presión sobre el jugador en posesión. Es un partido para analizar tranquilo, tenemos ahora una semana larga y un partido en casa antes de un nuevo break, que para nosotros no será un break porque tenemos que jugar 3 amistosos. Así que lo vamos a analizar tranquilo durante la semana y veremos los puntos positivos y los puntos a seguir trabajando.
Coach, that's it. Thank you.
Well, lots of ground to cover there with Hernan Losada's post-game thoughts, but I'll tell you, the three of us were genuinely shocked to hear his initial question, which I apologize, we joined a split second late, but in responding to Stephen Goff, talking a bit about how he was frustrated that we had so many men forward for that final corner kick, and then to give up the goal at the end when you could have taken a point on the road is incredibly frustrating, and that is not the Hernan Losada we've heard since we hired him.
Right.
Well, then he then addressed it. He then said, that's possibly my fault because this is what I've been
I would say so.
training those guys to do. But, I mean, he said it. It makes sense that he's swinging so hard into what he wants to teach these guys that they haven't gotten into the finer points of when it is okay and you have put in all the work and it's okay to take the point, like your third game in a week away against a very good New York City team, right? So this, to me, and he said it too, it's a learning experience.
Yeah.
There is a lot to take away from this
I think
game.
he's learning as much as the players too.
Exactly. Yes, he's learning about the league. The players are learning more about his system. Again, he's been with this team for 11 games now, right? So we're still learning the Losada system, and we saw the cracks in that today, and that's what everyone's kind of been saying is, these teams that we've been playing aren't really great. New York City is going to be a really great example of playing against a good team, and we saw what that meant for the team today.
Yeah, I think it's a lot to do with the rotation of the squad because of the fixture congestion. These players probably haven't been in this situation together yet, right? Why is Donovan Pines the last one back instead of being in the box for a corner? Why is Kevin Paredes in the box and not back when he's on fresh legs? There's probably the lack of leadership because Brillant leaves, and now we have 3 brand new center backs basically in our back line. And so these are growing pains, and that's unfortunate for us tonight, but I can see how it can easily happen.
Yeah, and it is important to remember, I mean, we're having growing pains while we're right around the playoff line in June. That's okay, right? And we talked a lot about how this part of the season, I mean, hell, we haven't been this close to the playoff line this part of the season in a while. So this is good. And, if this is how you got to learn, fine, do it now and not in September or October, right? A couple other things that he mentioned there, lineup changes were, influenced by giving minutes to players who've been working hard in training, but also another nod to, the 3 games in a week, which, again, I wonder how much of, the schedule craziness Losada knew at the beginning of the season when, he was like, this is the vision, and I think the vision works great in a, we play once a week vacuum. But, yeah, I'm with you, Sam. I think he's learning too.
Well, it's interesting, too, because he's been caught off guard that not every team plays midweek when DC United plays midweek, right? That's something we all know as MLS fans, is that some teams play midweek some games and you get the longer rest. And he's been publicly caught off guard twice with that now. So to me, it's less
Welcome to the nonsense.
So to me, it's less that he doesn't really know how to structure the fitness for this team, because structuring the fitness for someone who hasn't played 3 times in a week versus someone who has, right? You can argue that the press and the system, even if your guys are tired, the other guys are just as tired. So if your fitness level is already a notch above theirs, the system still works. But the fact that he's kind of realizing that MLS does not function that way, it'll be interesting to see moving forward how he does adjust to that.
Yeah, and I think just like beyond fitness, there's a depth issue on DC United. We don't have the deepest roster. When we start subbing on our 5th string center back, that guy's probably not going to be the fastest player in MLS, right? And I think that's what caught us out in here. And Donovan Pines is a starter, but there could have been someone else. And I think that's going to take time. Let Lucy and let Losada find the players that they want to fill out, not just the starting 11, but also that bench, so that we have players that can execute the system, even from the first string all the way down.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about that too. I mean, players were gassed. That's why N.Y.C.F.C came out, and that's it. It sounds like every single sub we made for the most part was because someone was either just dead or they picked up a knock somewhere. I mean, we commented during the game. It was before the 70th minute. We'd used 5 subs.
Crazy.
Which is, certainly not something we're used to seeing in DC United eras in the past, even hitting the 3 threshold in a game. But I mean, that's early and also a little scary. You got to go the final 20 minutes without an available sub. We saw what that did to Montreal midweek. I think the depth is huge, and not just at the striker position.
Yeah. I think center back is where it hurt us today, and we'll grow, and that's a process, and it'll take time. But I think the people in charge, and even the people that are in the depth right now, are good players. They're decent, but we don't have all the players that this system needs yet.
Yeah, I'd agree. We all collectively sound a little less sad than we did at the very beginning of the show. And it's still disappointing, right? You always, when you go up that early, you want to be able to come away with something, especially on the road against a very good New York team. But J-Rag mentioned it in the comments. It's disappointing, but it's really not the end of the world. As we've all said, there are many factors going into this one. The team didn't play horrifically, right? So there are things to take and learn from and grow. And like John said, in June, when you're right at the playoff line, this is the time to learn these lessons and to make these mistakes. So that way, going into August, September, October playoffs, you already have these lessons in the back of your mind and you're not making those same mistakes.
Yeah, and I mentioned in my pregame prediction that we've only taken 4 points off of N.Y.C.F.C. in a season once, and I would really doubt it at this time. We'll have a chance in October, so maybe there's some growth between now and then.
Well, it looks like we're ready to go to the press conference. We'll go back.
Steve, go ahead, man.
Hi, Nigel. Thanks for your time. What was your reaction to the way the game unfolded, and particularly the way the game ended after your team led most of the day?
I think we started well in the first half, and we scored a goal early in the game, and I think we played a great first half, and I think second half we kind of rushed in the game and started to kick long balls, and I think that was our mistake, and then they scored the equalizer, and I think at that point we just have to tell each other, like as a team, like if we cannot win here, then we not lose as well. So then in the last, I think 10 seconds, we also get a chance, and then they fall on the other side. So very disappointing.
We'll go to Jason Anderson.
Hi, Nigel. Thanks for speaking with us. I wanted to ask about the goal itself for you and generally the building connections with the rest of the team. I know some of your time here was broken up with overcoming the injury, so that's kind of a two-parter.
Yeah, I think, since I came here, I didn't start that well. Like the first game against them at home, I was a little bit sick as well. So, and after that, I had an injury. So I didn't start that well. I didn't start great. So I'm happy to have my first goal, but I think in the end, it's about the result. And like I said, I'm very disappointed that we lost it.
Go to Jose Umania. Jose.
Hey, Nigel. Thank you for speaking with us. My question is, you played today. Where do you see yourself right now in the pecking order with the rest of the strikers on the team? And what do you think you add with the rest of the season going forward?
Yeah, that's a difficult question. I think this more a question for Hernan, the head coach, and I just try to give my all for the team and my max for the team, and then in the end, it's up to the coach who is gonna put on the first 11. So whenever I play, I just try to give 100% for the team, and I think with my speed and the runs in behind, I can be very dangerous and help the team as well. So.
We'll do one more question. We'll go to Mauricio.
Hey, Nigel, congratulations on the goal, and don't get discouraged by the result. Just take the positive thing that you start on the 11 today and you scored. It's your first goal with the DC United, so congratulations. Embrace that. And what do you think you have the performance with the team today? Because, your first time in a long time.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I'm very happy to have my first goal and to start in the first 11 as well. And like I said, in the end, I scored the goal. I'm happy about that. But again, I'm very disappointed about the result. Like, I know that I have to be positive, but I think it's difficult at this point.
Nigel, that's it, man. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
DC United goal scorer Nigel Roberta talking a little bit about his game tonight. Not a whole lot noteworthy to break down from his comments. Anything you guys want to talk about?
I like the gesture there that it was a good goal and his first start and first goal for this team, and that's a big deal, especially for a player who's made a pretty big transfer, coming from the lower leagues in Europe to MLS, and I'm glad that he was disappointed with the result still, and the questions are trying to get him to boast a little bit, and he wasn't having that. He was disappointed with the loss, and you'd like to see that in the players.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that he was the player chosen to talk.
As a fox just walked by. That was very bizarre.
That's the third time that's happened. I've had to just sit here quietly.
I'm not the only Leicester fan in the neighborhood. So, Sam, you had mentioned earlier what I brought up during the game, talking a little bit about both Paul and Julian. Well, the question I had, and it kind of hit me early in the first half, was, do we think that, and it's not loaded in any way, I want to know your guys' thoughts. You probably know where I stand. Loaded. But do you think that the performances we've seen out of guys like Paul and Julian, coupled with the performances we've seen out of some of the guys with perhaps less big names on the roster, do you think that has anything to do with the opposing team's kind of game planning for, okay, DC United's got some big talent in guys like Julian Gressel who can send good balls into the box. Paul's developing a finishing touch over the past season or so, minus the ACL injury. We take them out of the game, and now DC United can't really do a whole lot going forward. Do we think that there's any of that going on, or do we think it's truly these guys they're just not playing as well as some of the young guns right now?
Go ahead.
I'll go. I think there is some of that. I think especially earlier in the season, through the first few games, DC United played like 75-25 for the right side versus the left. And I think that's, if you're scouting, like if I'm able to notice that, I'm sure that MLS coaching staffs are able to notice that and try to game plan for that. But also there's a little bit of underperforming, I think. I had the thought came into my mind to look up goals added for DPs in this league, and it wouldn't surprise me if Paul, we love him, he's been on the show, he's a great guy, but it wouldn't surprise me if Paul was in the bottom half for goals added by DPs. if that makes sense to you guys.
It would. I mean, would you say like on like per game or you overall? And the only reason I asked that is because he missed an entire year with the injury.
I mean, definitely this year, right?
Yeah.
But maybe overall, I don't know if Paul's ever been. I don't think I know he hasn't hit over 10 goals a season because no one has for DC United. And that's
we should sign that. No one.
That's a stat I wish I didn't track. I think Wayne maybe broke it, but it was with like set pieces and stuff. But yeah, I think there is some underperforming there, and I don't want to see that. And I'll take the brunt for Julian because you guys know that I love Julian. I think some of it's that we haven't had a finishing striker for a lot of the season, and then some of it's on him. He's been getting visibly frustrated for the past few games. And I don't want to see that, especially when the player's not performing. I understand that it's super frustrating, but I don't know. Put your head down and get to work, I guess. I don't know.
Sam, your thoughts?
That's interesting. I'd love to hear what our friends in the comments have to say. But I think that's a little bit easy to kind of give them that excuse. You know, you're right, maybe in the first couple games, as Joshua said. But I would argue, I mean, Kevin Paredes, Moses Nyman are two people that I first thought when you said perhaps not as big names, but they kind of are now, right? When you have two very young players being named to the Gold Cup provisional roster, other teams are going to start looking at them and going to start looking at how to specifically mark those players. And they're both still performing, right? The second part of that is that good players they know how to work around knowing that they're going to be targeted, right? Sometimes it's taking a couple fouls early so that way the ref looks at it and knows to kind of call for you if they're going to go on you. Sometimes it's, just adjusting the way you run or the way you touch the ball, right? You have to know if you're a bigger player in soccer, and this is throughout the whole world, if you're a bigger player in soccer, you're going to get marked, but the good players are able to still get their job done, and they are not.
That's a really good point because I think you're right. Paredes was fouled so much last game, and that's doesn't happen by chance, MLS. If you are good and the other team knows it, they will foul you. That it happened to Lucho up and down the field when he was good for us. Less so for Wayne because you can't foul the star DPs like that in this league. That's a whole nother thing. But yeah, Paredes was fouled and still was contributing, maybe not in goals and assists, but he was moving the ball up from his left back position. And then Moses today with the assist, and maybe it wasn't as far up the pitch as you would like to see, the traditional goal. He feeds the pass in directly, but he found a way around, like you were saying.
It was great, though. And
he found a way around and was able to deliver with his talent to the ball into the net.
Yeah. Rose Room Collective had a really good comparison of his pass to Roberta and then Andy Sullivan's pass to, I think, Trinity Rodman. And it lines up, like the timeline is perfect. You literally just changed gender, basically, and it's the same play. It was really great. We have a really interesting follow-up question in the comments, but John, first I want to hear your answer to your own question.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's kind of where I came up with the question is I don't know. I mean, I definitely think teams can and do game plan to take individual players out of the game. I don't necessarily think that every team we've faced since Julian Gressel signed with DC United has done that. So I think there's definitely some on the players. I think, Gressel's played a pretty similar role in most of his time with United. Even, the system was different under Olsen, but positionally he's been mostly in the same, right midfield, right forward part of the field. What's happening with Paul Arriola right now is interesting, and we talked a little bit about this during the game too. Of like, sometimes it's almost like he's in a second striker role, which, by the way, he is not a second striker. And other times it feels like he's more in that traditional midfield kind of role. So I don't know. I mean, I think the answer is it's both. I think teams are definitely looking to make it difficult on these guys, and some of that could be because of their names. Some of it could be because they're visibly getting frustrated, like you said, Joshua, right? And it's like, hey, it's easier to take a guy like that out of the game. You knock him a couple times early, shut him down, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, they're already in their own head. Now we'll focus on other things. So I don't know. I don't love the idea of Paul being deployed as a second striker. I'll tell you that. And I would like to see Ola and Nigel out there at the same time if we're gonna do 2 strikers, not Paul advance forward.
I'd almost bet that second striker role was designed, or at least I think it's originated from Flores. Flores is a second striker.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And I think his injury plays into both sides of what we're talking about now. Paul should not be forced to play second striker because that's not his position. He was a right wing back for Xolos, and now he's a right winger in MLS, and he's a pretty good one. But we're asking him to do something else. And another part of that is we're asking all these players to do something else, right? When your big money DP goes out injured or hasn't been effective, like Flores has been for the majority of the time he's been with DC United, I would say almost. I haven't seen a game where he's dominated.
No,
I haven't.
So he comes off the pecking list, and everyone else is expected to carry a higher level of burden. And so now we're looking at Paul Arriola and Julian Gressel, who are, maybe a low end DP for Paul, and then like I don't even think Gressel is a TAM player, but he came with a lot of GAM on his transfer. He's around. Well,
is he really not a TAM player?
He might. I really think
he was a TAM.
I think he's around 500,000, which would.
I know he costs a good amount in the transfer,
costs a little bit, and that's why we put the expectations on him.
Okay,
but yeah, we're asking so much more of these other players, and we don't have Flores to blame because he hasn't been playing.
So his second or third season with DC United, Flores. Second. Yeah. So to me, I'd love to see what he can do coming back from injury.
It almost still feels like his first because he missed so many games last year.
He did miss a bunch of games. It was a rough transition, but that's something we see a lot in MLS, right? Is the first year being really rough. And I saw some sparks from him this season, him really kind of adjusting and this style probably fitting a lot better, right?
Yeah.
So Joshua mentioned we were at the open practice. He was, warming up. He did a little jog by and everyone clapped for him. So, it was good to just kind of see him doing some soccer-related things.
He's still out there,
Hopefully
guys.
he'll be back soon. Yeah.
Yeah. He shouldn't be far away. And neither should Steven Birnbaum, as we've said for a month now.
Yeah.
Steve was in the practice.
So
he was or was not?
He was.
All right.
Yeah. So the question,
I need him.
Again, from J-Rag, thanks for posing it. And we've talked about this on the pod before. I think if we had a clinical striker, Gressel would have 5+ assists, and we'd be having a different conversation about him.
My man, let's go.
Is that 5+ assists like already this season, or is that on the year?
He would have 5+ assists.
Ola has missed 5+ goals, right?
That's for sure.
A different conversation. So, do you all think that's accurate?
No, I absolutely do.
I do as well.
Ola has missed 5+ goals from Gressel's foot. So
and I still think Ola should start for this team. By the way, I think.
Did you see that screamer though, Roberta?
But again, I think you could sell me on a 2-striker package here. I mean, I think Ola has a lot to offer. I don't think he's been nearly as bad this year as he has been in previous years. I'm not saying he's out here setting the world on fire because, folks, he's not. We've all watched it, but. Yeah, I think if you had a world-class finishing striker out there, a la Joseph Martinez, Gressel's got more assists. He should have more goals. I don't know where that's going to come from. I guess I have a follow-on question, but I don't want to eat up this question. What do you guys think?
I think that's a little bit easy because you kind of get into the question of, does that say more about Gressel's assisting talent or someone like Joseph Martinez's finishing talent? Right? Can Joseph Martinez finish like that if anyone's just sending balls in the box?
Well, that's like...
It's probably a little bit of both, right?
So I just think it's too easy to say we don't have a good enough striker because if you watch some of the balls he puts in, some of them don't make it past the first defender. Some of them go straight into the keeper's hands.
In this game, he had a few.
No, in all the games.
I was going to say, it feels like more often than not they don't make it past the first defender.
Because I know we're super hard on him, and a little bit it was just to mess with Joshua, and then I felt bad, so I really started watching his game and trying to not make it that reason.
I don't have that problem.
But realistically, not all of his crosses are phenomenal, right? They're not necessarily finding our guys in the box. And
I think sometimes he doesn't create enough space to send the cross in either.
Exactly. Yeah. So a little bit to me, it's more on Gressel. It's not like he's, today we saw sometimes he found Paul's foot and then Paul just couldn't put it on frame. That's super frustrating, and that's not on Julian Gressel. But I think more often than not, he's not finding the player he's crossing
more often
into.
than not in soccer, you don't score versus scoring.
You're right.
Right.
But
I think.
So do you think we're like one lights out striker away from like Gressel's unlocked like he was in Atlanta?
I think I think it goes back. I think we're one very $5 million-ish DP away from being a very good team, and we don't have that right now, right? Because he's been injured or hurt. I think that's the reason the team went out and spent that money, is because we needed that. You need that to compete in this league because all the other teams have them. Thiago came to N.Y.C.F.C for a little over $1 million or so. He's big money signings make it happen, and you can't do anything without that.
I will say big money signings or a really strong academy. And we're
I think we're getting there
possibly
on that.
starting to see the academy side of it.
I haven't seen any strikers in the pipelines yet, but let's
You're
hope.
Right. But
hey, we'll take anything we can get.
I'm thinking of teams like Philly, right? Like they don't necessarily.
But even Philly is
signing.
like a good point. So I watched this and I almost tweeted out today, like starting to feel really good about our academy products. They're like getting into the team and playing really well. And then Philly just throw out a 17-year-old in his first start. He gets a bicycle kick goal at 17 years old. And I'm like, what the heck? But his supporting cast is different, right? He's got Castor Shabelko, who is a Bundesliga striker that came over and is playing well.
Good. He's fun to watch, too.
So it's hard. I want the academy to be everything, but you kind of have to have the balance in MLS.
Right.
And right now, this team doesn't have the balance. They have a little bit of everything, but not a lot of anything.
As always, the text and call line is open at 540-986-4833. That's 540-9-UNITED, as we're live here on Tried and True, the DC United Postgame podcast presented by Heineken.
And before you say whatever else you were going to say, I just wanted to give a shout to Samuel22, our Montreal fan from last week.
He's back?
Who's in our comments.
All right.
Go.
He said, hey, I feel your pain. So I wish we could maybe not be like commiserating right now, but celebrating right now, but love having you back.
We'll take any new listeners
much.
we get. Tell a friend or 5. So my question I was going to ask you guys, though, and it's related to the question from the chat, did Roberta make enough of a statement tonight to say, maybe we don't need to splash a ton of cash this summer on a new striker? Like, maybe we've got something in the tank on the team.
I think that's hard to say after one game.
Listening to him talk in his press conference, did you have more to add on that?
No, go for it.
Listening to him talk, he was like, yeah, I'm not unhappy with what's happened. I've been sick. I got hurt. And I'm just kind of glad to be giving the team what I can do now. He's like, I tell you, he talked about his veracity and speed. And I was like, oh, man, I don't know about all that yet, but I'm excited to find out. I haven't seen Ola Kamara score from the run of play in so long, right? Well, the turnover that Miami gave us, right, I'm putting that to the side, but penalties don't count for me either. That was a good goal. He's running over the back shoulder of the defender. Moses sees him, puts the ball. It was a dime, right? All the props to Moses for that. But then it's a 2-on-1 situation. And I haven't seen Ola do that in so long. And I was happy to see it. I would be happy to see more of it. We'll see going forward.
I think I made the joke when it happened. I was, it was adventures in the back line right beforehand. Things were not going well, and all of a sudden, the ball gets cleared out by Bill. Nyman plays a beautiful ball forward, and I'm like, well, we're good. We're just gonna have a golazo here from Roberta, and we did. And we haven't seen that in so long. So look, to answer my own question, I don't know if Roberta's the long-term answer at DC United, but like any position in this game, if you have people fighting for the starting spot, they're going to get better. And if Ola's name is in pen, if he's 100% fit, and Roberta's right there pushing him, that's a good thing. Because one day it's not going to be we played 2 games in a week and Ola started them both, so Roberta's starting tonight. It's going to be Roberta's just better. And then Ola's going to be pushing to get back in there, and that's good for everybody. Yeah,
that's the conclusion I was basically coming at, but perhaps that we do need another person in there, right? Maybe
not Sorga.
Okay.
So no is what Sam said.
So no. I wouldn't be mad, and I don't think most of the fan base would be mad if we did go out and sign a pretty hefty striker, if anything, just to have that competition.
Price tag, not weight, right? Just to clarify.
All right, ignoring that. Because you're right, there's nothing wrong with having that competition. It pushes everyone to be better, and that's kind of the formula in MLS of how you do really well, is that you spend all your money on the striker and you have some academy / just MLS veteran defenders, and that's how you win, right? And then you sprinkle in your kids, and you sell them on to be able to afford the bigger name players. So we're getting there.
I think we figured out Casper's plan, guys. We're there.
We do also have a text here from longtime listener James. We appreciate you interacting with us. He said one non-doom and gloom thing to note tonight, which I don't know that we've been terribly doom and gloom so far, but this is the second time Losada's coached against the same club with Miami, and then also tonight against New York City. We've seen both those teams twice. He said he shifted significantly from the tactics in the first match. We sat in a mid-block for most of tonight's match, and clearly that shows that Losada is willing to adjust. And I think that, in a way, kind of speaks to what Losada was trying to say in the post-game press conference of, we're adjusting, but it in a way it also does kind of go against the ethos that he's trying to bring to this team. I know we covered on this a little bit, but did you guys, was an adjustment apparent to you all watching the game tonight?
For sure. It was not Losada ball. And he said before, and so I get to quote him, he said 70-30, right? We do our tactics 70, we adjust for the team we're playing 30. And tonight, that was not it. I would say it was at least 50-50. I didn't see the teams, and look, that's not a bad thing. Like, do whatever it takes to win. And honestly, we should have done a little bit more and adjusted that last corner to get a point. But it is fun to see maybe this is an evolution, or maybe he says some things and then does. I don't know. I'm not mad.
That's such an interesting take from James. I really appreciate him texting that into us, because we just chalked it up to the fitness level, not the fitness level, but the 3 games that we've played, right? And
fitness plus fixtures.
Yeah. Not fitness in the way that Losada was maybe talking about fitness at the beginning of the season now. We just chalked it up to having to change the men on the field, and that inherently meaning that you have different talents and the system needs to change a little bit, because he hasn't really been here long enough to be able to build like for like subs like that. So I don't know. I still think that it had more to do with the 3 games than it did necessarily New York City's tactics or how we were going to play against them. But perhaps I'm wrong, because Losada did say in the presser that he didn't want us going for that second goal at the very end. So maybe he did kind of adjust. I don't know. That's really interesting. Do you all have any more thoughts? Or I don't think I have an answer, really.
Guys, by the end of the year, it's going to be 4-4-2 and a low block. I'm telling you.
Oh, my God.
It's ingrained in this team.
No, it'll be either be a 3 or a 5 in the back.
But he did noticeably change. Like, we played 3 midfielders instead of the 2.
He said, though, that was because of the numbers and who he had available to him. Jason Anderson asked it, and also just shouts
But everything
Jason.
he said in the press has been, I'll do what I'm going to do no matter what, right? And that shows at least some adaptability. And I think we've seen some that has not been forced by anything else. I think there has been some choice in some of the changes that we've seen.
Yeah, I mean, before we move on, I think the last question I want to tee up is at what point should we start to be concerned? Because I don't think any of us are there yet. I mean, I see social media is a little bit on fire, and there's some rational takes in there, which is interesting. But I am certainly not concerned about this team. I mean, these have been 2 brutal games to watch this week, but in a very different way than how I would have described a brutal DC United game for most of the time that I've been a DC United fan, right? I mean, these were games we were in the whole time. We were attacking. We had chances. We only got 1 point where we probably should have at least had 4 out of the 2 games. So I'm not concerned. I think we've talked about some challenges with the roster, but other than that, I'm not terribly concerned. How do you guys feel in it? And at what point do we maybe get a little concerned?
I'm not concerned. And I don't know if we get concerned this season. And this goes back, we've talked about this a lot. It just goes back to what our expectations are for this season. Losada painted out at the very beginning that his expectations this season were to specifically learn the system. And you can expect us to be challenging for the league next season. I don't know if that's still what he thinks, because to me, this team has learned it a lot faster than I anticipated. We are looking a lot better than I thought we would at this point of the season. You can see that they understand the runs that they're supposed to be making and the passes, and even passing off marks and things like that. You know, they're really getting it. Yeah, and to me, the third game, unfortunately losing at the last moment on the road is not a reason to panic. I'm more concerned about our goals and the run of play, but that, again, so it has less to do with the system and more to do with the personnel.
Joshua?
I think, look, at one point, if the result had stood, we would have been 500 on the season, 5 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw. That's pretty good for a team that has gone massive changes, changed their coach for the first time in 10 years and doesn't have a Wayne Rooney on the team. And I don't know what we can change, right? Like people in the chat are talking about maybe a little bit, cynically, but like we don't have money. We're not a big spending team. What do you guys want to do? Blow up the whole – we can't just sell all our players, just sink that cost and then buy a whole new team. It's going to take time. So, like, what do you actually expect to happen in the summer transfer window?
Well, now we have Mark Ingram, so.
Mark Ingram with his 1% of the team is probably not going to change too much.
He bought in to buy a striker.
Look, he might be one striker injury away from at least getting a run out in practice in the next month or so before he's got to report to Texans training camp.
Yeah, but sorry, I don't think we can expect too much change to happen for this team. So if we can't expect too much change in so much short notice, how can we expect so much change on the field and in the product and such short notice? I think I don't want to admit that a season is lost, but this team is learning things and growing, and hopefully as we move through time, like we'll have more opportunities to maybe trade players, or their contract runs up, or we can free up a little bit of money to bring someone else in. I think. Yeah, I don't think we need to panic. Losada is the way. He's clearly got ideas. He knows how to win soccer games. So let's stay behind him. Maybe not stay behind the whole roster, but find ways to fix things and make the roster a little bit better. And I think we're on the right path.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear that personally, playoffs are the standard, right? They should be the standard for every team every single season.
In the MLS, yes.
Yes, I bring up what the standard Losada set just for us to benchmark our conversations around what the team is going for. But personally, I think we should be a playoff aspirational team, and I think that we are, right? We're probably not winning the Shield this season, but I think that we really do have a shot at the playoffs, and then more importantly, possibly making it past that first game hurdle in the playoffs.
I think that's optimistic. I think we're hovering around the line right now, and we got to figure some things out. I think other teams will get better. Other teams don't have completely full rosters and will, bring a third DP in, or they're going to spend money. And I think DC United needs to – I don't expect DC United to match that, but I expect DC United to get better at what they've been doing and grow as a team. And I'm confident that Losada will make that happen.
And we will be better. And frankly – not bringing in wholesale. Yeah, I really do think we've gotten better progressively throughout the season. So I see that continuing, because we talked about today where the team is learning, right? And I don't think that they're going to take these lessons from today and toss them. It's also possibly a good thing that we're not going to bring in very key people in this summer signing, because as we just said, it takes time to adjust, right? Unless you're bringing them in from another team in MLS, which isn't standard. It takes them some games and some months and some time to really adjust, and that can also kind of throw a team's balance off. So if we know that this is it until the end of the season, it's almost an advantage because there are no other variables. This is just it, and we have to, as a collective, figure it out.
It's a very optimistic take that
we've
come to expect from Sam Kastner.
I think they got to stay the course. I mean, keep doing what they're doing. Look, even if they come up short of the playoffs this year, it's not like we're going to fire Losada, right? I mean, if this is the way, this is the system we're going to play, keep playing it. You're not going to win every week. They're going to keep getting better. I agree with you, Sam. I think they are getting better. I think a little more health, midweek game that's out of the way, and not in the schedule. I think they should come back and they should play very well against the bad Toronto FC team at the weekend. If they don't do that, maybe I'll start to get a little bit concerned. And that's not long-term concerns. That's 2021 season concerns of like, oh man, are we going to be able to pull out of this nosedive this year? I still think, the vision and everything's pretty sound, but yeah, that's where my head's at.
Yeah. Some of the comments too, from Eric and Brian, thanks so much for commenting, are just that it's fun to watch this team again regardless. And that Eric specifically said, I feel proud as a fan more than I have in a while, so that's great. And I think we agree. Yeah. I think we agree. We said it last show too. It's a different kind of frustration we're feeling this season, but it's a more fun type of frustration. And it's just improving, right? Last game we were mad we didn't score. This game we did, so we're just moving up.
Oh man, my optimistic take is that at least we didn't hire Chris Armas, because Toronto is a little garbage fire right now.
A little. They're bad. We got to award a man of the match tonight. I don't know whose turn is it to go first.
Yours.
I'm ready. I've got mine.
Go for it.
Locked and loaded. Moses Knight, man of the match. I thought, look, the ball he delivered was probably enough to do it, regardless of how the rest of the game played. But he had more than one good ball. He was in the right position more often than not tonight. I thought he played great. Fortunate that he went off very, very early, and the fact that I'm giving my man of the match to somebody who only put in about 25 minutes.
30 something.
Yeah.
30 something. A little bit of an indictment on the rest of the roster, but that's where my head's at.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm frustrated with Moses. I expect if you start a game, you should be able to play at least 45, right? And so
I don't think Losada was. I don't know if he was 100% forthcoming.
Okay, yeah,
there's no way your 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid comes out because he's tired.
Also,
it's not happening.
Is that on Moses or is that on the training and coaching staff? There's no way Moses was like, I know I'm ready. And if he physically wasn't ready, they know that.
But above all, Moses should know that. Anyways, the pass was excellent, but I pay money to watch goals scored at soccer games, and Nigel Roberta did that from the run of play today, and it was like, look, it was a great pass in, but it was also a very good run off the back shoulder. And then he absolutely smashes it past Sean Johnson. I love seeing Sean Johnson sad. So I'm giving my man of the match to Nigel Roberta. And I don't think there's any honorable mentions this week, which is sad and indicative of what happened on the field.
Was it Roberta who you wrote down got the yellow card for hurting Sean's feelings?
Yeah.
That was a great yellow card.
It was a little bit more than that.
I thought he just dropped the ball live until I saw the replay. I was like, oh, no.
Look, that was a tactical foul. You'd love to see that.
We'd love to see more of it, possibly in the 95th minute. I'm going to go actually the opposite route, and I'm going to give it to Fred Briant. I thought he played really well. Moses is a good shout. I don't know if 37 minutes is really enough for me. I know Fred also came out early, but I thought he did really well defensively. He saved us from a couple tight situations. So shouts to Fred. I hope he's not too injured, because until Steven comes back, we do really need a veteran back there.
Yeah, and I think this is the appropriate segment of the show to give a shout out to longtime DC United friend Big Rob, who has been battling cancer for quite some time now, and we unfortunately just received word via Twitter that he did pass away peacefully in his sleep tonight. So our thoughts here on the show are, of course, with Big Rob, his son Marco, his whole family, his whole DC United family. I personally never had the chance to meet him, but I've talked to enough people who have and spoke so highly of everything that he brought to the Black and Red family. And hearing Dave and Devin and the team talk about it on the broadcast, this really is a family. It's been a family to me. It's how I've met some of my closest friends in the area, and of course you guys are among that. And it means a lot, and I know that we're not the only people that feel that way, and so this is definitely a loss, and our thoughts are with Big Rob and his family tonight.
Yeah, I mean, nothing to add. That's tough, but you're right. He brought so much to the team, and it really does show that at the end of the day, it's about kind of the people who support.
Yeah, and as we look ahead, Loudoun they played Charleston yesterday. It was a tough loss for them.
Smashed.
Shut up.
They were. It was. Oh man, Loudoun are a tough team because they're so fun to watch, yet they're not very good. And I don't know how that works.
Like they're bad at winning games, but they're not bad at soccer, which is perplexing. Like, I don't know what to make of them, but hopefully all those guys are getting good minutes and getting ready to step into DC United's lineup, and we have someone to fill Nyman's shoes when he gets sold to Europe very, very soon.
Ouch.
Man, I hope it's not that soon.
Yeah, for real.
It's coming.
Anyways, next weekend, the Black and Red take on Toronto FC at home for the first time this year. Toronto, as we mentioned a couple times this show, are not a very good MLS team. So hopefully DC United can find 3 points pretty easily. I know you guys won't be on the show next weekend. Michael Black will be back. We will keep you all updated in terms of whether we're going to be back on site just yet or if we'll be doing the morning after show on your Sunday morning, but just stay tuned to all the social channels. We'll keep you in the loop. Guys, what did we miss?
Spirit win, right? 2-1 away. Trinity Rodman, all of them went up there and showed them what was up. It was awesome.
Yeah, you love to see it.
Yeah, that's about it for me. I'm excited for that. Toronto on July 3rd should be a super fun game. I'm super sad that I'm going to not be there for it. Was at the team store when I went to the practice and saw the Americana training tops. They're a little too Revs logo-ish.
The inverted Revolution flag.
Yeah. But
why is that not their permanent away kit?
It would be pretty sharp as that.
Right,
but yeah, check those out if you are a big fan of the training tops. I know Sam is.
I thought you were going to say a big fan of America, which would have opened up a whole different segment. The training tops have been largely better than the away jerseys for a while. Sam, are you going to buy the Americana training top?
We'll see.
Sam is a big fan of America, so.
Okay. This is weird. Let's not have this conversation.
On that note, thanks for joining us tonight. Let us know your thoughts midweek. We'll hopefully have a press conference. We oddly did not have pre-game availability this week. I noticed that yesterday when we were talking about going to the. Yeah, that's true.
It was such a turnaround.
But anyways, I would expect Thursday to be press conference day as usual. We'll probably set Michael Black up to cover that as usual, especially because he's not here to defend himself. And with that, we'll talk with you guys really, really soon right here on Tried and True, the DC United post-game podcast presented by Heineken.